Hey plant lovers, have you ever felt the excitement of transferring your plants from soil to leca only to be met with disappointment when they start showing signs of stress or even worse, begin to die? It's a common frustration. The transition from soil to leca can be brutal for plants, leading to unnecessary stress and sometimes even plant death. But what if I told you there's another way? A method that not only safeguards your plants, but also encourages robust growth during and after the transfer. A foolproof way to transfer plants to leca that guarantees success. The long method. Forget the risky rip it out and hope for the best approach. This is a step-by-step method designed to minimize transplant shock and ensure your plants thrive in their new leca homes. By the end of this video, you'll be a leca transfer pro. We'll walk through the entire long method using a stunning philodendron ring of fire as our example. From gently prepping the roots to the perfect aftercare routine, I'll cover everything you need to know. But why not just go straight from soil to leca, you ask? The long method acts as a bridge, easing your plant into its new environment and significantly reducing the risk of shock. It's all about giving your precious plants the care they deserve to not only survive, but flourish in their new leca environment. And speaking of soil to leca success, stick around after the main event because I'll be sharing some bonus tips that'll supercharge your long method technique, making those soil to leca transfers smoother than butter. Now, to successfully perform the long method, we will need a few things. First up, you'll need your plant. Today, we're featuring the dazzling philodendron ring of fire. It's not just beautiful, it's also a perfect example for this method. Next, you'll need a vase or a jar large enough to accommodate the root system comfortably. I'm using an old coffee jar. We're gonna need some rooting solution. I'm using a Grow Technology Clonix Clone Solution, which I think is also called Cutting Clone Solution in the United States. And I am combining this with a root zone to give my philodendron the best start in its new leca home. Feel free to use whatever rooting solution is accessible to you. This is not all that's available out there. You'll also need a nursery pot and a cache pot that fits the planty style of your space. Of course, you'll need some clean leca. Make sure that it's rinsed and ready to go. Now that we've got everything that we need, let's dive into the process, starting with the very first step, preparing our philodendron ring of fire for its new leca life. The first thing we're going to do is take this plant out of this pot and out of the soil. I really love this plant. It looks absolutely divine. It looks really, really gorgeous. It's the perfect specimen for doing our soil to leca transfer. I've got a plate here that I'm going to put the soil on, and to help me do this, I've got a pair of gloves because I don't like to get my nails dirty. I don't like to get my fingernails dirty. So I put my gloves on just so I can keep that soil off my hands. Okay, so I give my pot a very gentle squeeze to loosen that plant, and out it comes. This is my plant over here. You can see it's got quite a number of little roots on there, and there's a lot of soil in this pot. So what I first do is just gently take as much of the organic matter off as I can, and I'm just very, very gently squeezing that, and you can see a lot of that is coming off as I do that. So just keep doing that, doing it very gently. You're trying not to damage those roots as much as you can. So this one is fairly easy to do because the plant was a little bit dry. I do like to let my plants dry off a little bit before I do this. I just find that it works easier, but whatever works for you, no problem. That's what that looks like. It looks really, really good. I think that is all I can do for this plant right now. What I'm going to do now is go outside and I'll give this plant a rinse, give it a wash, and get off the rest of that organic matter. So let's go outside. So I take my plant outside and I give it a wash using my hose. I'm using the shower setting and the jet setting to make sure I get as much of that organic matter off as I possibly can, and of course trying to be as gentle as I can, which is a bit weird to say. I know, but try your best. The other thing that I do when I'm doing this is make sure I wash the leaves to make sure that everything that was on there is off. And if there are any pests that are coming along for the ride, they're gone as well. Okay, so I am back from outside and this is what my plant now looks like. There's some gorgeous, gorgeous roots there. It's looking really, really lovely. Something I must emphasize to you is, look, there are a few speckles of organic matter on those roots. I wouldn't worry too much about that. The point is to get off as much organic matter as you can, not necessarily to get the plant to be as pristine as you can get it. That is not what we're going for. There are other ways of getting the organic matter off your plant. I know some people like to soak the plant in a bucket of water and just let that organic matter come off. Other people like to use a soft brush. Look, there's many ways to skin a cat. Whatever works for you, I suggest you do that. Spraying my plant immediately is the best way I've found that works for me because I get to do everything in one go and away I go. The next thing that we're going to do is prepare our rooting solution. I like to use, as I have said before, my Growth Technology Clonex Clone Solution and my Root Zone. This is what I like to call my special sauce. And I follow the instructions that are actually written on the bottle itself, but I'm going to show you how I mix that up. This is a jug that has got 5 liters of water. This is my 5-liter jug. So the first thing I'm going to do is add my Clonex Clone Solution, which is that. And the instructions say general use is 5 mils per liter of water. So I have 5 liters of water here. So 5 mils times 5 is 25 mils. That's what I need. So I've got a little measurer here. I shake it and I measure out 25 mils that will go in my jug. And that there is 25 mils of my CCS. I put it in my jug. Close my jug and give that a good old shake. Okay, right, happy with that. Put my CCS away. And now I've got my root zone. That is my root zone over there. Root zone says shake well before use. So shake, 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 shake. And the instructions on here say for cuttings and seedlings, use 0.5 mils per liter of water. And that is what we're doing. This is kind of like, or juvenile and mature plants is 1 mil per liter of water. So I'm going to go with juvenile and mature plants because our plant it's a bit juvenile, but it's, I don't know, whatever. I'll just go with 1 mil per liter. Also just because it's easier to calculate. So 1 mil per liter for 5 liters, that means I need 5 mils of root zone for my special sauce. So I'll grab my little measurer thing. That will give me 5 mils. I open up my jug and away we go. That is my 5 mils of root zone and I'll put it in there. Just wiggle that there. Make sure I get it all in there. Done. Close my root zone, put that away. Give my jug a shake. Shake, 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 shake. Okay, so this is my rooting solution all ready to go. I've got my jug here and I will put my plant in my jug. Now, before I put my plant in my jug, I should mention that, I look at the roots again, and if there's anything that looks really not good or is coming off by itself, that's fine. I'll get that off because that means they'll come off anyway. But if all that is good, I don't have any little leaves that I want to get rid of, I'll put my plant in my jug. And that goes all the way in my jug. And I will now top up this jug with my special sauce. That is my plant in my jug, submerged in my special sauce. That is looking really, really good. So what's going to happen at this point is I'm going to put my plant in a bright, warm spot, and I'm going to change this solution over every week. So on a weekly basis, I am going to pour that out, hold my plant like this, pour that out and put fresh special sauce in there until my roots are grown, until I've got new roots that have come out from the old roots, and those new roots have additional roots. So I've got secondary roots on my primary roots, and at that point is when I'm going to transfer that plant from this solution into Leca. But of course, I'll show you all those steps as they happen. I'll see you next time we see this plant. Hello plant people, it's been exactly 61 days since I put my philodendron ring of fire in this solution to undergo the long method. Yep, that's right. 2 months. One of the things that I see a lot of people doing when they're trying to do the long method is they don't leave their plant in there long enough. You just need to put your plant in there and completely forget about it. And when I say forget about it, I don't really mean forget about it, because you need to change that nutrient solution every week or 2 weeks just to make sure that your plant is getting refreshed, it's getting fresh nutrient solution, and it's getting solution that does have oxygen in it, because if you leave it there, then those roots are not getting a fresh supply of oxygen. So this is what my plant is looking like now. It's still looking pretty good, I have to say. This leaf is not looking the best. It looks like it's on its way out, which is to be expected. So you can get some leaf loss when you're transferring your plant from soil to Leca using the long method, and that is okay. But what is really interesting with my plant is, look, it's actually got a new leaf coming through. I'm not sure what that new leaf is going to look like. It might not be the best. It might not be the best quality, but still the plant is giving me a new leaf. The rest of those leaves are still looking really, really good. The plant is firm and it's looking vibrant. Now, let's take a look at the all-important roots. You can see that the liquid in my bottle is not looking cloudy. It doesn't have so much debris in it. That's because I've been changing it over. I'll take it out of here and show you what those roots are doing. But the first thing I want you to notice is when I pull my plant out, you can see all that debris. You can see all the loose roots that have actually come off the original roots and are now, those are dead. They're gone. Obviously, they're not coming back, and that is to be expected. But I also want you to take a look at this dangly bit over there. I highly suspect that those roots are dead and they're not going to survive. So if I just tug at that really gently, you can see how that comes off, and that is okay. That is another thing that is to be expected. Look at this over here. This is a whole new root that wasn't there before, and you can see that there's actually a lot of new roots that are looking quite, these are a lot lighter than the old ones, and that's just because of this philodendron ring of fire. Some of the plants actually don't have, you don't see light roots when the new roots come through, and that's okay. Not all the new roots are fuzzy and white, depending on the plant. Plants like fiddle leaf figs do not have white fuzzy roots, so it's actually okay. But what I really like on here is you can see the development of the little secondary roots over there. If you look on this root here, you can see those ones, 1, 2, 3, those over there. This new root as well. This looks pretty new, and you can see that you've got these secondary roots, the smaller ones that are coming off the main root that are new, that have developed. So these, I don't want to say these words, but I have to, because this is just what people know them as. This is what people would be calling water roots, but I really hate the term because there's no such thing as water roots. These are just roots that have developed and are used to living in that hydro environment. They're used to living in that water environment. But you can see that these water roots are actually coming from the old soil roots, as you might have it. So there's no such thing as soil or water. You've only got roots that are adapted to living in that hydro environment. So these soil roots, as it were, the roots that were there when the plant was still living in soil, that haven't come off like the ones that are in here. These roots that are in here have not adapted. They haven't adapted, and so they've died. That's okay. That is okay, because this plant still has roots that have adapted and they're now thriving in that hydro environment. And really, that is what the long method is about. It's giving your plant a chance for those roots to get used to living in that hydro environment before you whack it in the leca. So once you get past this stage, you know that this plant is going to do well when you put it in leca because those roots are used to living in that environment. So as I keep just gentle tugging, you can see that I'm actually getting more of those roots that have not adapted, more of them. And someone actually sent me a message on my Facebook group. I've got a Facebook group which is called Semi Hydro with the Leca Queen, and there lots of people send messages. We discuss all sorts of lovely things, a lovely group of people. And this person was talking about the fact that when they've got their plant in the long method and they are refreshing the water, they take the plant out of the jug, tug at the roots, and then put it back in and put the fresh solution. No. That is not what we're doing. When I am refreshing the water in my jug, I simply, if I've got my plant in there, if I've got my plant in there like this, I simply get that, I pour it out, and that's it. And then I put my fresh nutrient solution. I do not touch those roots. At the 30-day mark or however long I decide to keep it in there is when I take my plant out and I inspect it like this. And then, the ones that haven't adapted, that's when this happens, okay? So yeah, I hope that's cleared that up. I'm now going to take this plant to the sink and give it a wash. And as I'm giving the plant a wash, giving those roots a wash, a lot of the old ones, see, you've still got a lot of that. And don't worry about that at all. That is not a problem. We were expecting that to happen. A lot of these will come off and the plant is going to look brand new with some new roots. I'll go and do that. And then we will put this plant in Leca clay bowls. I'll see you in a bit. Okay, I'm back from washing my plant and that is what it looks like. That's what the root system looks like. So a lot of the old dying ones have sloughed off and these are pretty robust. Look at this root over here. You can see those little secondary roots that I was talking about earlier that have come through as the water's been doing the long method. And you can see this one over here, the one that looks pretty clean. You can see that this root has not been in the soil. It's pretty clean. So this has developed while the plant has been here. This one as well, actually, you can see it's come from this point over here on the plant. That is a completely new root. So with this having developed, I can almost guarantee that, without anything bad happening like pests or other things like that, this plant is actually going to thrive in the Leca clay bowls. So when I just tug at them, those are my roots. They're happy. There's no root rot there. Oh my gosh, that smells so good. It smells so good. It smells so good. I'm really, really happy. So at this point, this plant is actually good to go in the Leca. But before I do that, this leaf, it has to go. It's not bringing anything to the table. It is dying, so there's no point in leaving that with my plant. It just, it's just gotta go. So I just pull that off, and that is the plant that I am working with, and it looks absolutely fabulous. Okay, so I am going to use a 14-centimeter pot to put my plant, and my pot has got these little ventilation holes in there. I make those holes myself with a soldering iron, and that is just to allow these roots to get all the air that they can. I am also going to use a cache pot. So this is usually what I use for my plants in Leca. I'll put that in there. That's where I put my nutrient solution. And this cache pot is literally just a pot liner that I cover with some black tape. And the reason I do that is so that light doesn't go into my nutrient solution and allow the algae to grow. So, but for today, I'm going to use this clear one just so I can show you the level at which I put my nutrient solution. And of course, this is some Leca that I have made earlier. It is clean. It is been soaking in my nutrient solution for not less than 24 hours and it is good to go. So the first thing I'm going to do is put some Leca in my pot. And that's just about a third of the way up. That's where I want it. And I will then put my plant on top of that. So I'm trying to spread out the roots as much as I can. I'm not bunching them up in one heap and just leaving them there. As much as you possibly can. Branch them out, spread them out, and then all I do at this point is fill that pot with leca. Okay, at this point, I just give that pot a gentle squeeze, tap that down, allowing that leca to settle. And when I do that, I find that I've got more space and I'll put more leca in. Righty-ho, that is my plant looking absolutely amazing, and I'm pretty sure it feels amazing too. In this cute little watering can, I've got my special sauce, which is made up of the Clonix Clone solution and root zone that I used to soak my plant in that first time. So yep, we continue using that rooting solution, and that's only because at this point we've disturbed the roots, as it were. So I want the roots to get a little bit more comfortable, get happy growing, and then I will switch over from Clonix Clone Solution to Foliage Focus. So this is how I put my solution. I'll just pour that in. So I've got my pot there and my solution is just about a third of the way up. Those roots aren't touching that solution. Although I do have to say, the general message that we give is the solution needs to be below the level of the roots. And this generally applies to plants that have gone straight from soil to leca without going through the long methods. These roots are used to living in that hydro environment. So it's neither here nor there really for a plant that's gone through the long method. So yeah, this is great. I'm loving how my plant is going. I'll have it sit in my bright, warm spot again, taking really good care of it, changing over that solution every week, and probably within the next 2 or 3 weeks, I'll start to see those roots start to grow down. Once those roots are established and start to grow down, I'll see you then and I'll show you what it's doing. It's been 63 days since I put my philodendron ring of fire from the long method, from my nutrient solution into the leca clay balls, and I'll show you what she looks like today. Stick around to the end because I've got something very special to show you that this plant has done that's going to go a very long way towards helping you realize and know what to expect when you're transitioning your plant from soil to leca using the long method or the direct method. This is my plant today. She is looking glorious. Look at those leaves. How beautiful has that plant transitioned? Apart from that one leaf that I took off when I was moving her from the nutrient solution to the leca, we have not had any leaf loss at all. I really love how this is going. Now let me show you the all-important root system. Look at the roots of my plant. That plant is doing so well. You can see all the roots that have gone around that pot. It's really, really thriving. You've got those roots that have just really just taken off in those leca clay balls. I'm going to show you something now that I do not recommend you do at home. Do not do this at home. But I just want to show you how when a plant's roots have actually really grown into the leca clay balls, the whole system becomes one unit and starts to function as one unit. Look at that. Whoa! No hands. Absolutely no hands. So that in itself tells you that there is a lot more roots than you can see on the outside, on the inside, and they're all just holding everything together, and it's just fantastic. You can do the same thing with plants that are actually growing on a moss pole. Normally, a lot of my plants that are growing on moss poles, I just pick them up and the leca doesn't fall out and it's beautiful. But, sometimes that can misfire and you'll have leca all over the floor. So it's something I definitely do not recommend you do unless you know 100% that that's not going to happen. But I promise to show you something really interesting that this plant has done. So if you recall the last time when you saw this plant and I was moving it from the nutrient solution into the leca clay balls, it was growing a new leaf. And at that point, I expressed concern. I thought, I'm not too sure exactly what's going to happen to this leaf. Here it is now. This is the new leaf, this one here, that plant was growing when it was going through the long method. It did not survive. Things did not work out for it, but what the plant has done is something fantastic. I'll turn the plant this way. Look at that. The plant has simply decided to bypass this and is now giving me a new leaf over here. Things are moving on, and I really wanted to wait to make this video until this leaf emerged, but it was taking way too long. It's winter in Melbourne. It's one of the coldest in a really long time, so this was just going to take forever, and I really wanted to get this video out to you guys. But you can see how when you first move your plant from soil to leca, either using through the direct method or using the long method, the first leaf might be a casualty. It might not be the best leaf, but that plant is still settling down. It's undergone a major house move. So things might not be working the way they should, but this is assurance to you that things will catch up. And bearing in mind that this plant has been transitioning for, oh gosh, I don't know now. So that was like 61 days before, 4 months. I've been doing this for 4 months. So that's really one of the major lessons that I wanted people to understand about doing the long method, especially with slightly larger plants even. It does take a very long time and you do need to be patient. Look at my philodendron plant. It is absolutely thriving, doing really, really well. And the long method is something that allows the plant to just transition into the hydro lifestyle or the leca lifestyle at its own pace. Go watch this next video where I show you how I transition my very, very large fiddle leaf fig from soil to leca. I'll see you there.